I guess just the fact that she had to grow up so fast, and then she,
right.
At 14, and then she had the baby.
Well, one of the reasons, though, that she married at 14, she had won a dance contest, just like Ginger Rogers, who was also from Texas. And Mom had won this contest, and the people got in touch with my grandparents wanting to put Mom in movies. Well, my grandparents just had a cow. I mean, this was not something that a well-raised Southern Baptist girl did.
Were they in Arkansas at this point, or didn't they move from Texas to Arkansas or something?
Yeah, they were still in Arkansas at that point. But, they were right on the border, and I don't remember if Mom said if she won the contest in Arkansas or if she won it, knowing Mother, it was probably when she was visiting relatives in Texas, because I can't imagine my grandparents allowing her to enter a contest. But I never thought to ask her that question, so I don't know. But, see, she and her aunt, Estelle, were really close buddies because Grandma Smith was the oldest of 7 girls and 1 boy by quite a bit. And Estelle was the baby of the family. She was an artist. She'd gone over to Paris and studied, and the rest of them, my grandmother and all 6 of her sisters all had college degrees, which at that time was really unusual for women. And a couple of them were teachers. My one, Aunt Annie Merle, that I adored, was a dietitian for hospitals. And she always worked, according to Mom. Grandma Smith ran family farms and all, because my grandfather didn't. He had been raised to be a gentleman, and he was a gambler, but Grandma ran everything.
She did all the work.
Yeah. So that was different.
Sounds like she got some role models there. Now, was her birth name Frances Octavia Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna just swing back. We're gonna come back to Arlene. So then your mom passed away. So what was happening during that period, and the reactions of you and your father, and
Well, I mean, we kids, everything at the house, as you can imagine, was sort of, just chaos, because Mommy had just had Dusty, and he was 5 days old when she died. And Linda Lou was 3, I was 6. And here Dad, all of a sudden, I don't think Dad ever changed a diaper. Roles for fathers back then were totally different than now, with my boys, where they participate in parenting. Then Daddy never did. And he was just not around very much either. He was making movies or he was touring. So it was really difficult. And I remember Aunt Neen and my grandmother being there for the first day or so. But then all of a sudden, Whitey Christensen, that was Dad's double, his mother came and stayed, and she was taking care of us. She was widowed, so she was, I guess, the only one that was really free at that time that Daddy knew. So she came, and then a friend of hers, Virginia Peck, who was also a widow, moved in and became the cook. Dad bought a ranch up in Lake Hughes, up on top of the plateau up there, called Sky Haven Ranch, and moved us up there, and sold the house. And he was living over at Glenn Randall, his horse trainer. He moved over there. Now, he and Dale had been making movies together for three and a half years by that time. And they were good friends. She was married to Dale Butts, who was the music director for Dad's pictures and all. And that marriage hadn't been doing well for quite a while. She loved kids. And Dale Butts was a musician. He would work at the studio all day, and then he'd go home at night and compose and do arrangements and all. And he had never wanted children and was really vocal about it. But when they got married, I think she thought that she could change his mind, as we ladies tend to think that, yes. Well, and it just didn't happen. In fact, her son had been pretty much raised by her parents, because Mom had been very ill when he was small. She was a secretary during the Depression, and as she liked to say, took dictation from like 13 different men, and just worked.
Memphis or something?
No, by that time, I believe by that time, she was up in Chicago when she got really sick. But you're right. She went from Arkansas. She lived in Memphis. That's when she first started on radio and got the name Dale Evans. And then she went from there, I think, to St. Louis for a very short period of time, and then to Chicago. And then after that, she had a job in Dallas for a bit, so got to see Tommy more. And then went back to Chicago and was on radio there, and then from Chicago came to Hollywood.
So she was working as a secretary by day, and then trying to maybe sing in nightclubs and things in the evening,
right?
Do radio shows and
yeah,
like that.
Just keep it together.
Do you think she was doing it just like, okay, I've just got to have some money for my child and for my life, so I think I'll just do this extra thing, or just think she was going, oh man, this is what I want to do?
Well, the first song that she copywrote, she was 16 years old when she wrote Just a Tear of Regret. And then she evidently wrote a couple of other songs that she took to a publisher or something. And anyway, they turned it down. And then a couple of months later, she saw her song published. And so she didn't publish anything else for several years before she did. I think she and Dale Butts were married. And being a composer and all, he was more into that and got her back doing her music again. But I mean, she was just devastated when that happened to her. But I mean, so many writer-composers have that happen. Anyway, I mean, here was Daddy, widowed, with these 3 babies. And Mom's son is ready to enter college at that point. In fact, no, I think he was in college at that point. So, and she had missed out almost all of his childhood. And she and Dad ended up getting together. You know, according to her, he told her that she could have as many kids as she wanted. And that was a real compelling thing, as well as just, I mean, he was, as my daughter says now, she says, Mom, Grandpa was a hunk, you know, and the attraction, I think, was just so incredible. My husband likes to say that it was the immovable object, Dad, and the irresistible force, Mom, just got together. And I mean, they were meant to be together. I mean, that's all any of us has been able to think, because where both of them had been married previously, I mean, this one it lasted the rest of their lives.
And then didn't she, after making a few movies with Roy, didn't she want to try to go off and do other pictures? But everyone was, clamoring for them to get back and do the movies together. And she came back to his movies, and that was it.
Well, and she said that there was a strong attraction, and he was married, and she didn't want any part of this. And so she asked to be taken out of his films. But also, I think a lot of it, too, wasn't only because of the attraction, but she didn't want to do Westerns.
Yeah, she wanted to be more of a...
Her dream had been to be on Broadway. She wanted to do musical comedy. That was her absolute love, was the singing and dancing. She wasn't a great dancer at that point, but after she got out to Hollywood, she took lessons from Louis Mosconi that taught everybody at that time. I took lessons from Louis Mosconi. I took tap from him years later. But yeah, I mean, she took tap and she was good. She was a really good dancer.
Her beautiful legs.
Oh, she had great legs. Yeah. And she was just gorgeous. She was a beautiful woman.
Now, when the two of them got together, did their social scene kind of remain the same as Roy's had been as far as his buddies in the movies? Did she,
Well, I mean, like is always the case, like had been the case with Mommy before. Mm-hmm. I mean, at that time, especially, his friends became her friends because the set that she ran around with was a lot more sophisticated than the Hunters and Fishers and the bad guys that were Daddy's friends. And Mom had been a big band singer and done the touring, and Dale Butts, and I mean, that was more the composers, artists, and all. So her friends changed a whole lot after they got married.
Did they socially ever intersect at all with Gene Autry and his wife, Gene and Ina Autry?
Yeah. I remember them talking about, having dinners together, things like that. Nothing that we kids were ever included in. As I said, now that I've got this cookbook out that you guys helped me with and participated, and we've got Gene recipes in there. But so many of the interviewers that I've talked to have said, well, now, did the Rogers family go to other famous people's houses for dinner? And I said, nobody was crazy enough to invite us. There were 6 or 7 of us.
I have a question about the marriage. Well, actually, this was Holly's question. They got married on New Year's Eve.
Right.
Prior to that, did your dad come to you and say, here's what's going to happen, or is it okay with you kids? Or
no.
Did you know what was going to happen?
No.
Just kind of
didn't have a clue. And where she had been my hero since they started working together, I mean, she was Superwoman. There was nothing that she couldn't do. She sang, she danced, she wrote music. She was gorgeous. And she liked little kids. I mean, so many of Dad's leading ladies were teenagers. I mean, really young ladies who, they probably had younger siblings at home and all, but I mean, they didn't have time for a very precocious 3 or 4-year-old.
Like Janie, what were some of their names?
Well, Jane Frazee was way later.
Oh,
by that time, I was older.
She was when Dale, I guess, had the baby.
Right, when Mom had Robin. Janie Frazee came in. And they had been friends before she was in Dad's movies, because she was married to Whitey Christensen for a while there. And no, but Dad's leading ladies always seemed to be very, young. Gail Davis, Gail Storm, who was a teenager, Elise Knox, who is the mother of Mark Harmon. She was gorgeous. She made a movie with Daddy just not too long before he started working with Mom. Ruth Terry. And she had a similar background to Mom. She came out of the big bands and all, but she was very young. I mean, when she was doing the big band singing, I think she said that her mother traveled with her, but she was like 16, 17, 18 years old when she was singing with the bands. And so, they didn't have time for her.
They didn't care about little kids.
Yeah, no. But Dale always seemed to. And if I wanted to go in and mess with her lipstick or something, she would show me how to do it. And I mean, she told my husband afterwards that she'd always wanted a daughter. And when she saw me, that, it was one of these things, I wish that, that she was mine type of thing. So we just hit it off. And years later, she said, because I had just been so much like her temperamentally, and she said, I don't know if it was the Texas or not, but
Oh, that's right, because you guys both were born in Texas.
Yeah. She had been born in Uvalde at her maternal grandfather's home. And yeah, I mean, we really hit it off. But boy, when she and Daddy got married, I gave her fits, just fits, because Dad had,
7 then, right?
well, I was 7.5, and when Mommy died, Daddy told me that since I was the oldest, that it was my responsibility to look after Linda Lou and Dusty. And then he bought this ranch, shipped us off. He stayed in town, and we probably saw him, I don't know, maybe twice a month, if that, for a bit. And I mean, I liked being in charge of them. I was precocious and bossy. I think they still think of me as bossy. But yeah, and so when he surprised us with a new mother, all of a sudden she went from my hero to my rival, and I was really upset and angry. So I told them I would not live with them, and I went and boarded in Villa Cabrini. Now it's not there, but that was a Catholic boarding school, girls' school, over in Glendale or Burbank, I can't remember. Anyway, the chapel is still there. But I was there for 1.5 years, and then I got some horrible stomach problems, and it was right about the time of the polio scare. So if you had to leave campus, our campus was closed, so you couldn't have visitors, you couldn't go visit.
Because of the polio?
Because of the polio scare. And I got stomach troubles and had to go into the hospital for a couple of days. And then I went home to recuperate, and they go back. So I ended up at Cherimoya School, because when he and Mom married, they were living on Ivorine up on the top of Vine Street. And they had bought that from Noah Berry Jr. And it just burned down a year or so ago. Yeah.